meeting with the Finance Committee Budget Subcommittee. I believe they do have a quorum. We have the Finance Director, the Town Manager in attendance, amongst other guests. Lori Garini's here. So we have some legislation that's been referred to us from the last council meeting, and we also have the FY22 budget. What I'd like to do, since we is to go through the budget. If we could go to the FY22 budget and get that out of the way, and then we can go back to the legislation referred. Beforehand, I'll take a motion to approve our minutes of April 5th.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Sean, seconded by Matt. Any discussion?
Nope.
None.
Sean?
No.
I mean, you're going to approve them. Sean?
Yes.
Matt?
Yes.
Dennis, yes. 3-0. So we'll go to the FY22 budget and budget orders referred. Nathan, do you have a quorum of your subcommittee here?
We do. Can you hear me, Dennis?
Yes. You want to call it to
Okay.
order?
I will, and I'll apologize in advance. I'm having some technological issues here. I may have to log out and log back in. But for right now, I will call the Bridgewater Finance Committee Budget Subcommittee to order at 6:35 p.m. Thank you.
Okay. So we'll go through the budget items, and then we can take votes on them if we want to tonight. We do have another scheduled meeting on Monday, the 26th. If we want to hold off on any of these votes tonight, we can do them Monday. The town council will not be taking up the budget on the 27th. We'll be taking the budget up on our first meeting in May, which is May 11th, I believe. May 11th, we'll be taking up the budget. So there's no real rush to get the votes in tonight, but if we can, we can. So I will refer to the town manager, the FY22 budget.
All right, thank you, Counselor. So you have in front of you, obviously, the FY22 general fund budget and the FY22 enterprise fund amounts, and then the FY22 revolving fund authorization. So we're starting with general fund budget. Let me give you just sort of a broad overview, and then certainly we can answer any questions or more detail. Tony and Lawyer probably could provide excruciating detail. So on a broad sense, I think everybody knows we went through a pandemic in 2020 in fiscal 21. So that had originally affected a lot of our pre-budget planning. We got to revenue estimating, and Tony and his team did a spectacular job with that. We are, all things considered, I can say we are in relatively good shape in terms of revenue. We are tracking it very carefully, I think, as the counselors certainly know. Specifically, I'll run down some of the revenues that we use and are specifically transferred into the general fund, specifically to fund general fund expenses. So most notably, ambulance receipts. So this year we had a significant decline, as you, well, it's a little counterintuitive, but as you probably could expect, if you think about it, had a significant decline in ambulance usage. That resulted in obviously a decline in revenue for the ambulance service. After really analyzing it and looking pretty carefully and analyzing the steady pickup since the depths of the pandemic, we're pretty confident that we will see a recovery with ambulance receipts. Tony's projected, I think, a 3 to 5 year recovery period to get back to the consistent growth that we had been seeing over the last 6 to 7 years. That said, we reduced our projected take, if you will, out of the ambulance receipts account and brought that down to about $1.9 million. It originally we were sort of projecting something over 2 million to take out of that, but we've sort of shaved that back a little, knowing that the account did not gain as much revenue this year as we had anticipated due to the pandemic, but also recognizing that we will see, we're very confident that we'll see a pickup in ambulance receipts moving forward. So we've also worked pretty closely with the billing company who really serves not only as a billing company, but also as sort of a consultant on medical and ambulance related issues, because that's their business. So that's obviously the biggest chunk of transfers or revenues transfers that we have. Title V, pretty consistent. The enterprise funds, which are indirect offsets, pretty straightforward. And same with conservation filing fees and energy and Elm Street diff is the other one that deserves, not a remarkable amount of money, but it does deserve some discussion or some pointing out, just because you'll see that now for the next number of years. So that is money, correct me if I'm wrong, Tony, that is money that is collected due to the diff that the council voted, that we are not necessarily having to use to pay off the first year of the bond that we floated for Elm Street. Am I correct in that?
Well, it's a little bit more. Let me be direct. That actually is the converse. This is the amount we have to do two things every year. Revenue that comes in from the diff revenue goes into the diff fund. We take out of that what we need to service the debt. And so our debt service figure for this year is 144,063 for the diff. Elm Street. Make sense?
Yep. Sorry.
Okay.
Got it.
Nope.
Yep.
No
So that is, but that comes out of the diff fund.
That's correct.
That is where, and again, the diff is, the fund is made up of the difference between the baseline before we started the project and the increase in the increased taxes due to growth and new building on Elm Street in the Elm Street district. So that's how the fund is funded.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So then just in terms of expenses, we tried to not reinvent any wheels this year, with a few exceptions. We are funding the implementation of the true, well, I shouldn't say the ultimate, but the beginning of the implementation of a DPW. The general fund picks up a portion of the salary for DPW director and the support that's necessary there. So that is one item that is added. Picks up the portion of the expense of the facilities director that we have brought on. And in terms of increased bodies, we also see one at the PD and one essentially one in the fire department. So the PD and the fire department also both are somewhat restructuring for different reasons. The fire department is adding essentially a code enforcement inspectional person who can specialize in those areas. We intend to grow the inspections to what really we should be doing in terms of inspecting multifamily units. And so we'll pick up some revenue stream there. I don't think we'll pick up a revenue stream that will completely offset that, but it is a service and an obligation that the town should be living up to. So we did fund that. We also funded the addition of one officer in the police department, really 1.5 if you include the increase in the cadet program. And the point there being that we know we've got police department is interesting. We've got half the department, or maybe a little less now, is made up of longtime officers, and half the department is roughly made up of relatively new officers. There's very little in between. So that presents a challenge to us, because we know we're going to have retirements, whether folks are aging out or just retiring after they've got their required years in. And in terms of command staff, we're trying to build sort of a ladder to bridge those 10 plus years where the town didn't do a whole lot of hiring. So that is really basically the changes. Otherwise, we tried not to make a whole lot of changes, knowing that this year, while we think it's going to be okay, we certainly didn't want to do anything too drastic over and above, sort of our standard operating procedure. I think that's really the gist of it. Tony, if I'm missing anything, feel free to chime in, but I think that's the gist of it.
Did you mention, yeah, as far as head count goes, the only thing is, you mentioned about a third of a person in the highway, the DPW, correct? Yep. And then you got the one in the fire, and the 1.5 in the police. That really rounds it out. That's correct. There were some expense highlights, just a few, particularly I think in the building department. You had talked about wanting to make sure we make some adjustments so that we have the resources in there in order to support the work that the facilities director is going to be responsible for. That had some expense increase. Other than that, there were no major in the our general fund related departments. The school, I don't know if you're going to cite anything on the school related budget items at this point.
No, other than to just mention, I think the counselors know, but I'll mention it for certainly the benefit of finance committee folks. We actually had pretty extensive communication this year with the schools, the superintendent and the business manager, which was great. We were able to resolve a lot of what I think were long-standing areas of confusion that certainly we had, and certainly the schools had on a number of finance fronts. But we got to the point where we were able to, and we worked with the schools long before this, but we were able to fund the assessment that the superintendent brought to the school committee, and the school committee voted. So that's of some benefit. So the debt service obviously is up significantly. That's the excluded debt up significantly over last year. That is essentially the Mitchell School and the payments for the Mitchell School beginning to kick in. And so that explains the increase in school debt. But I will give Kathy Macedo, Tony, and the folks that worked on a lot of credit for really locking in the debt. We locked in at such a low rate that we were able to cut down the number of years. So I believe it's a 20-year borrowing, Tony.
Yep.
And that coupled with the really good construction bid that we got from a quality company, things really kind of fell into place there. A lot, certainly the finance end, some luck, but some really good planning. And then on the bidding end, I think a lot of that is due to the quality of the architect and the specificity that he could show in the construction documents. So we've kind of lucked out there. So I'm quite pleased with that. We do have an increase, excuse me, in Plymouth County, Bristol Plymouth. That's simply a function of the number of students that go. It's as easy as that. And then Bristol Aggie, I think we're up a little bit. We are right now estimating nothing for Norfolk Aggie. Norfolk Aggie is a little different. It's outside of our district. So if a student goes there, it really is a pretty expensive proposition for us. And we also have to pay transportation for those folks. So our policy on Norfolk Aggie, if somebody wants to go there, it has to be for a program that is not offered at Bristol or Bristol Plymouth or the regional district. So it's pretty, we kind of tightened up a little bit on that just because, it's a compounded expense for us that is a challenge. So fortunately right now, it doesn't look like we will have a student there, but if we do, we can address that mid-year. I think that's basically sort of the broad view, but happy to address any questions.
One question that I have is on the highway, on page 61, the highway superintendent and the DPW director. So currently there is no DPW director, or is there? There is one, or isn't
there? Is not. You're likely going to appoint one soon, but not right now.
Okay, so so the DPW director would be over the highway superintendent and the department?
Correct. So in terms of structure, great question. In terms of structure, DPW right now are what we anticipate through the end of the fiscal year or the beginning of the next fiscal year is a DPW that oversees a highway, roadways, engineering, water, sewer, transfer station. And I think those are the big facilities. Those are the bigger ones. We will be having more discussion about, what makes the most sense moving forward. But we're going to let that let the process settle in, let the first few months get settled in before we start to address rearranging.
I mean, I just am concerned about the salary that's budgeted because it's about half. The DPW director, according to the budget, is about half the amount of the highway superintendent. I didn't know if there was going to be an adjustment or what. It seems like that person.
There's multiple funding. So that position will be charged to general fund, water enterprise fund, sewer enterprise fund. It's allocated. This is a portion that we just budgeted for allocation in the general fund.
Okay, so the amount that I see in the highway department budget is just that piece for them. Okay.
That's correct.
Okay, then on page 69, under the recreation, the park steward, is there one that's been hired? It is in the budget for fiscal 21. The 17 grand is in there. That's never been spent. That has not been. Okay.
No, we have not been. We had anticipated hiring somebody. We had an acceptance, and then at the last minute they had to back out, and we went out and were not able to get anybody at that point. But I will say, just in terms of our preview, we know that there are going to be changes. Obviously, both with DPW, we're going to really be assessing DPW's role and how we can most effectively get things done. Within that structure. And there will be an effect, I think, on the parks. There'll be an effect, on rec, on the golf, and there'll be some changes in how things get done, all with an eye towards getting more done with the resources that we have now.
And then one final question on the retirement assessment. I think that you'll be able to pay the full amount on July 1 to get that discounted rate, I believe, because I think it's important to know that we're able to do that because it saves us, according to what is owed to Plymouth County and what you budgeted is about $77,000 less, which is probably the amount you save because we're paying it up front, right?
That is correct, Mr. Gallagher.
I just want to point, that's a good a good thing that we're able to do that because it's a good chunk of money.
Yes.
I don't have any other questions. I'll open it up to anybody else.
I am
$65
good.
million, $65 million we're spending.
Going
I'm
once, going twice.
I just have one quick comment or question, Michael.
Sure.
So I really wouldn't mention it. Maybe it's not appropriate at this time, but you mentioned that the police department is increasing funding for one position. And I don't know what the current staffing levels are, but as we anticipate the next fiscal budget, I really don't want to get this far into it before I throw in my own comments that I'd like to just see the police chief evaluate over the course of the year the cost to bring on a full-time clinician or counselor. I really don't want to be back here adding more police officers without focusing on that area. I know that we have one part-time under a grant that's shared between multiple towns. But I certainly think the department, I'd just like to hear his comments on that and how impactful supporting a position like that might be in town. So just want to throw that out there. I know it's kind of at the last minute, but maybe now that we have the time in the next fiscal year, we could maybe fund a position over there. Thank you.
No, I think that's a really good point, and I know that and I think Tony's had some discussions with the chief specific to that, and I think that's ultimately his goal. He's looking right now at some grant funding opportunities that would allow us to bring on somebody full time. So good point. And I think if and when that time comes, hopefully it's sooner than later. We'll have the chief come and give a whole little presentation on what the benefits of that are. So it's a good point.
Awesome. That's great. Thank you.
That's a good point, Matt. And the other thing too, Mike, if I could just add to that, and I'll probably bring it up Tuesday night or when we talk about the budget on May 11th, is the police reform bill that was passed through the legislature. At some point, as a counselor, if I'm successful on Saturday, I'd like to hear what impact the police reform bill has on our force here in Bridgewater. I'm sure it has impacts on all forces, all the police forces throughout the Commonwealth. But what does our police department need to do to adhere to those reforms? It's important to know whether there's going to be a cost associated with that, if there's additional training and overtime and things like that. So.
Yep, we can definitely do that.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Sean, your questions?
No, I'm good.
Okay. Nathan, anyone from your group have any questions?
Well, I just have a quick question for Michael. Michael, on the highway department, we keep talking about the DPW director. I thought you said, is there some money to hire somebody more hands-on on the ground in that department?
So in terms of light equipment, heavy equipment, and laborers, yes. And the challenge we've faced down there is that we have funded positions. We've had funded positions. Now probably we're into our second year having funded positions without people actually applying. Or we've had some people apply and nobody's gotten through. So short answer is yes, we got the funding to get more boots on the ground, so to speak. And our challenge is to try to recruit the quality folks that we need. So we've had some success recently with open water and sewer positions because we were in pretty dire straits in terms of water and sewer. Open water and sewer positions, which are a little more specialized because they're license required. But there are licenses required, obviously, for heavy equipment operators, but for laborers and some light equipment, there are none, and we've had a real challenge trying to find appropriate people. So
Is the compensation that's being offered to those, to the laborer in line with other towns around us? Yeah.
We certainly are not high, but I would say we're about average. It's quite honestly, we're certainly not the only town that's facing this. Everybody is facing facing sort of a little bit of a crisis because literally we can't find the people to work. And, it's understandable. I think at this point, everybody, not everybody goes to college, but certainly, more and more people are sort of thumbing their nose at manual labor, and which is unfortunate because it's, there's some great jobs that, great benefits and great future that you can latch onto, certainly in municipal departments, but yeah, we're right in the mix. It's kind of the same. It's sort of, you could see this coming down the road, 5-6 years ago. We kind of saw it, and we continue to see it with snow removal, hiring contractors for snow removal. Just nobody's interested. So you look at the guys that come in and operate our plows, because we have, more plows than we currently have staff. So, all of them really are already retired. So, you look at the average age of the driver in the snow plow on a given night in February, and you're up in probably the upper 60s for the average age. And the same is true with contractors. Contractors just aren't interested, so anyway, that's long explanation for your short question, Nate, but that's kind of where we are.
All right, I appreciate it. Thank you, Michael. Anybody on the Finance Committee subcommittee have any questions?
No, I'm good, thank you.
Yeah, Nate, we obviously we spent a few hours with Tony
Yeah.
recently discussing the budget, so I'm pretty good as well.
Okay, thank you, Eric.
Do we want to go briefly over the enterprise accounts? Yeah.
Sure.
Yes.
Water, sewer, and golf.
Mhm.
All right, you want to,
Some highlights on the water, sewer, golf, and transfer station.
sure, I can really pretty much all in the same sort of vein. No major changes. Continue to try to fulfill or try to fill a lot of openings. And as I said, we've done better with water and sewer than we have with highway. So we have, Tony could probably address a little bit better, but we have underway a sort of a concerted effort to begin to build up our capital funds within each of those. Certainly water and sewer, as we know, we've got a $16-17 million water treatment plant well underway, and we're getting close to beginning a $30-some-odd million sewer upgrade. So we want to, in order to ease into those, you want to make sure that you've set rates high enough to be in the early stages to begin to collect some capital money so that you're not impacting the ratepayers dramatically, when a bond payment hits down the road. So that's what we've tried to do, but generally there's no significant change, I don't believe, in water or sewer. Tony can chime in on that one.
No, none. The staffing, Michael, that the superintendent of water and sewer wanted, we began to look at that last year. So we had already set his staffing needs around where he needs to be. And that's part of the dilemma you and Kimberly have been faced with in recruiting. But as you mentioned, you're making headway there. Actually, so there's no major changes in the salary line items. And then on the expense side, actually, we tightened it up. We brought on a budget analyst to work with Jonas and Lisa, and has done a nice job. She has, Ashley, and really sitting down and looking at all the expense numbers really closely. And in fact, we saw a slight decrease in some of their expense lines. But no, overall, water, sewer, that covers it.
Any questions on the water and sewer enterprise fund budgets? If not, we'll go on to the transfer station.
No change, no changes there, Michael.
Yep, no changes there. I think we as you recall, we've had some shortfalls in the last couple of years. We did increase our disposal rates, and we seem to have done pretty well with that. Rick runs a pretty tight ship, so no significant change in that enterprise at all.
And the revenue should this year be able to, will exceed, we anticipate, what was budgeted FY21, and the rate structure going into effect in July will more than cover the FY22 budget.
Are you seeing more residents take advantage of the transfer station? I know there's been some consolidation amongst the private pickups, and a lot of people, I think are getting discouraged with the pricing they're paying for quarters. So I don't know if we're seeing more residents take advantage of the punch cards and so forth. That helps.
I think, yeah, my last conversation with Rick, I think he's seen a pickup in use, which is great. That's exactly what we wanted. Unfortunately, it might have taken a pandemic to get us there, but it's been good. It's been very good.
I think your reasoning that you just mentioned, Mr. Gallagher, is in fact it. The pricing war that was kind of going on has stopped, and more traffic is heading that way.
Any questions on the transfer station enterprise budget? Move on to Old Scotland Links Golf Course.
Old Scotland Links. So
23rd year.
Wow. So the only change here that and actually I think I got a question about this a while back. And we made adjustments because we had to make adjustments due to minimum wage increases. So so any increases in this budget were reflective of now meeting minimum wage for some of the summer help. Other than that, pretty much the same deal. The golf course has done very well. Again, the unfortunate pandemic caused fortunate uptick in play for us. So we're looking fairly solid on the revenue side. So that's good news.
Yeah, I think we should, we're planning on and projecting that we're going to meet the revenue for this year. We believe the revenue estimates that we have for next year will be met as well. There's been an uptick in the game of golf. It's still an activity you can play even with COVID restrictions. And there may be a newfound sense of where I spend my time. Maybe I should spend more time on the golf course, given the new perspective in the community of golf. So golf in general across private, public courses is up between 13 and 18%. So first time in probably 10 years.
That's
Sounds like a good time to outsource the management.
Okay.
We look at everything all the time.
Any questions on the golf course enterprise fund budget? If not, we'll move on to the revolving accounts. This is just a simple vote that we would take to authorize spending limits of the amounts listed under order FY2206. Nothing, it's pretty standard, right? These,
It's an annual authorization.
And for the benefit of any finance committee folks, I know the counselors have seen this before, but these are required to be reauthorized every year for some odd reason. But that's a quirk in the state law. But we reauthorized these and provide a spending limit, so none of those have changed.
Any questions on the revolving accounts, revolving funds? We'll move on to the CPA reserve accounts for fiscal 22.
And the CPC reserve accounts really reflect what the CPC has voted. Tony's worked with them to develop their budget, but really in terms of CPC budget, the only thing that we have to be pretty concerned with are the debt payments that have been committed to be paid out of CPA funding for both the Academy building renovation and then the purchase of the Keith Homestead up by the lake, Lake Nip. And really it's now the property associated with the Keith Homestead, because the deal was that the Keith Homestead would be sold, and it was. And so it's really paying for the property that was, that came along with the Keith Homestead.
Like with all the activity in the housing market this past year or so, even, well, particularly this past year, houses are moving pretty fast. Have we seen any commitments from the state regarding the deeds share that we get with the excise? I believe it's the deeds excise recording fees, some part of the deeds transaction that goes towards the CPA matching funds to the towns. It used to be 1-for-1, but obviously they've gotten away from that. But have we seen any commitment that would increase?
I get some indication every once in a while, and I don't know if Tony's gotten anything recently on the state match commitments.
I believe the fee they were charging went up, so therefore there was a percent that went to cities and towns who had adopted it. So we've seen an uptick in our revenue over the last 2 years.
Okay.
Absolutely, we've seen an uptick. For a while there, it was somewhat diminishing because of the number of communities that were adopting it, but it's held fast and the numbers begin to rise.
Good. So we're in good shape there. Any questions on the CPA reserve accounts for fiscal 22?
No, we asked Tony that same question you just asked Dennis last time we met with him.
Good. So that ends the FY22 budget information. I didn't know if there were any general questions. Now, Nathan, you guys need to hold a formal budget finance committee meeting to vote on these, right? Are you going to do that Monday or?
I anticipate that we'll do it on Monday, Dennis, because we were aiming for the 27th prior.
Right. Okay.
And I believe the agenda is just.
You have a meeting scheduled for the 26th, so that's probably the one, right?
That's the one, yeah. Yeah, and it's the joint meeting with the budget subcommittee too.
Right.
And I anticipate that, yes, we'll take action on those orders then, Dennis.
Okay. I guess we don't really need to have the joint meeting to continue. The budget and finance committee can stay in session and we can go back to our regular agenda and go through some of the items that are referred to us from the council meeting. And then if we want to go through the budget items and vote on them tonight, if Matt and Sean, if you're comfortable doing that, we can, but we do have a meeting scheduled Monday to finish up anything that we didn't get done tonight. And we don't even have to do that on Monday because we have plenty of time before May 11th to vote on these things. But everything seems to be smooth. Everything seems to be well. The presentations are clear. The schools seem comfortable with their appropriation. Town departments seem to be comfortable with their appropriation. The budget's in balance. Revenue is what it is. And we just hope, we meet our revenue projections and don't get any surprises during the fiscal year.
I feel like we're in an Alice in Wonderland kind of year.
It's kind of smooth.
If we're not going to go into the legislation we're gonna hold off, I do want to get an update on the billing practices for school district on town-owned buildings.
Yeah, we're gonna go back to our items for action,
Okay,
and then we'll come back to the budget orders. And if we want to hold off on those, we can.
okay.
But Nathan, you can disband your subcommittee meeting unless you got other things your subcommittee is going to talk about, but.
We don't. We'll let you get on with your business. Do I have a motion from the Finance Subcommittee for adjournment?
Motion to adjourn.
Okay, I'll take Susie as a first and Julie as a second, and I'll do the roll call. Eric,
Aye.
Julie,
Aye.
Susie.
Aye, and thank you, everyone.
Thank
Okay,
you.
thank you. And so we are adjourned at 7:12. Thank you.
Right.
I'll see you
Okay, we
Monday.
can stay though, right?
Oh, yeah, yeah.
We're just not part of the meeting?
Right.
Okay,
We'll
thank you.
have public comment.
Except for you, Julie, you have to leave.
Thanks, Sean. Appreciate that.
All right,
Tony
have
and
a good
everyone,
evening,
thank you very much.
See you
Appreciate
Monday.
it.
Yeah, have a good night.
Very welcome.
Okay, so now we'll go back to legislation referred, which is order FY 21-00033, acceptance of a gift from the Howard Foundation. Is there any
Make-
questions?
Nope, motion to support?
Second.
There's a motion by Sean to accept
Accept.
the gift from the Howard Foundation, which is $10,000, I believe. Any discussion?
Nope,
None.
Okay, Sean,
yes.
Matt,
Yes.
Dennis, yes, it's 3-0. Next item is acceptance of a grant from Mapc Transportation Partnership FY 21-034.
Motion to accept?
Second.
Motion by Sean, seconded by Matt. Any discussion?
None.
Nope,
Sean,
yes.
Matt,
Yes.
Dennis, yes, it's 3-0. Next item is acceptance of gift Claremont Lakeside gift for tree planting FY 21-035.
Motion to accept?
Second.
Motion by Sean, seconded by Matt to accept. Any discussion?
None.
None,
Sean,
yes.
Matt,
Yes.
Dennis, yes, 3-0. Next item, FY 21-036, transfer order Elm Street Capital Fund replenishment.
Motion to support, or, I mean, we can't approve the transfer, but motion to,
Motion. Transfer. Motion to
motion
transfer.
to transfer, okay. Well, technically, we can't do it. It's the
That's
council that has
correct.
to do it.
That is, you are correct.
So what I'm saying is motion to support, Dennis, is what
There
I'm
we
saying.
go.
Oh, I like it. I want to see that. I want to see the movement. I want to see.
Yes,
the
I can get behind that. Second.
Second, okay. Any discussion?
No,
Sean,
yes,
Matt,
Yes.
Dennis, yes, 3-0. Okay, now we're gonna go to transfer order FY 21-037 CPC Parks and Recreation Pickleball Court Project.
motion to support,
Second.
Motion by Sean, seconded by Matt. Any discussion?
let's get this done.
Pickleball,
Pickleball's we've been talking about this for 2 years. Let's get
Yeah.
it done.
okay. Here it
I think
comes.
they were planning on paving, I think earlier this week.
I saw a picture of some paving going on.
Yeah.
Anyway, Sean,
Yes,
Matt,
Yes.
Dennis, yes, 3-0. Transfer order FY 21-038, completed CPC Legion Field fencing project.
motion to support,
Second.
Motion by Sean, seconded by Matt. Any discussion?
None.
no,
Sean,
yes,
Matt,
Yes.
Dennis, yes, 3-0. Then we have a FY 21-039, acceptance of one-time revenue Claremont Lakeside Viva for public safety.
motion to support,
I support. Just had a quick question for the town manager.
Sure, go right ahead. Yep.
is there an identified use beyond salaries for this money?
This money is not going to be used for salary. This money is going to be used very likely for a comprehensive radio upgrade. So Matt probably knows, but we've got some pretty significant issues with radio coverage. So this will go part way to solving that.
Excellent. Thank you.
Actually, one other thing, Michael, just for this as well as and I know this came up, the Claremont Lakeside gift. When this comes back in front of the council, we have to be overt of what this is and what it isn't.
Yes, it's a negotiated 40B mitigation.
Right.
So, yeah.
But I think with Claremont on it, people are going to have some potential questions. So we can just reiterate that. I think that'll help avoid confusion.
Yeah, good point. I won't say it's like a kickback. Like,
No.
Or
'Cause it's
whatever I
not.
alluded to last time.
Yeah,
Which
because
was
that was a bad mistake. So,
bad choice of words.
you know, it's like in the old days when the keys are in the car and the door leaves your hand, you have no way of bringing that back. So
True.
anyway,
True.
Okay, any other discussion? This has been moved by Sean, seconded by Matt. Sean,
yes.
Matt,
Yes.
Dennis, yes, 3-0. So that ends legislation referred for tonight. These will be on our agenda Tuesday night unless the Finance Committee hasn't chimed in yet. Discussion items, billing practices for school district on town-owned buildings. We have had this on our agenda as a standing item to try to get further clarification on the practice. So since we have the finance director here, and he's still here, I'll refer to him if he has any update on advising us on that practice. And Sean.
I spoke with Kathy Macedo, and I had asked her, what's the practice with Rainham? And our practice that we have is the same practice that Rainham has with the district. So we're not doing something contrary to what Rainham is doing. Now, if both parties want to use this or discuss this and handle it any which way you'd like, I'm just looking at practice, and that's the practice.
Yeah. So Michael, this is outside of the regional agreement, right? We don't even contemplate this in the regional agreement, correct?
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah, that's correct. So I think there are a couple different things here. I'm sorry, Sean, I don't know if you were finished. I cut you off.
No, I am. I'm just trying to think if we, as Tony said, if we collectively, both towns say we need to adjust this, it doesn't make a lot of sense, you know, for us to allocate money to them just to pull some of it back in regards to ongoing, you know, maintenance that we should be supplying. That doesn't affect the regional agreement. It would just affect the billing practices.
Right. No, I agree. And I think, you know, certainly I think the one thing we've learned this year, which has been quite refreshing, is that we can have a very honest conversation, you know, with the district. And I think Kathy and Derek have been very helpful, you know, trying to resolve a bunch of other things. But I think it probably behooves us, if we want to make a change, to have, you know, our Rainham partners and the schools and us have that discussion if we want to change something. So
Yeah, I mean, I can communicate that back and see what next steps are. Okay.
Okay, well, that's good.
All right, I'm good with that, Dennis.
Okay, so I'm just going to note in the minutes that the finance director advised us that we have the same practice regarding this issue as Rainham has. So we do nothing different than they do, and they do nothing different than we do. So I'm going to
Correct.
take
And,
it.
yeah.
Yeah, I'll take
And then
this off.
we may just go, actually, that's fine. You don't have to add anything else.
Can I take this off the agenda? Are we satisfied?
Yes.
That this has been, we got an answer. Okay. Very good. Then the next item are our budget orders the budget for fiscal 22. I would suggest that we hold off on Monday night when we have the next joint meeting, and we can vote these with the finance committee. We can do a vote, they can do a vote, we'll do a vote, they do a vote, we go back and forth, and it's like we've done that before. Is that okay? With
Fine
you,
by
Sean, Matt, is that all right?
Works for me.
Okay. So we'll defer the budget in budget orders referred to our meeting on Monday. Is there any public comment? Anyone from the public here wishes to comment on this meeting?
Yeah, I just have a question on that. I understand we do the same as Rainham, but could you just describe what that is, what that process is? Isn't that I mean, as
Their
a former
water-
member, I know what it is, but I just wanted to hear it again to make sure that it hasn't changed or.
So Tony, let me before you get into
Yeah,
that. So
please.
Julie, the reason this is on here is because, and you may be aware of this, so I'll tell you, is that I was asked that, Bridgewater bills for certain services back to the district. Why do we do that? Which I didn't have the answer to, hence the reason I brought it to town manager and the finance director. So I think the way it's being approached is we didn't know if we were doing something that Rainham wasn't. So
Right, but is the answer why, just because Rainham does it, is that why we do it? You're saying it's not in the agreement, so we just do it that way because Rainham does it that way? I guess that's.
right, and it sounds like it was a long established procedure, I'll call it, that now knowing that both towns do it, now it becomes, in my opinion, a conversation to have with Rainham, with the district to see, what we're doing today, which the good news, quote unquote, is we're both doing it and
Right,
see if we make adjustments on a go forward
Okay.
basis.
right.
That's
So we're saying that right now, the school district makes the payments and then they bill each town for their share of whatever that cost is, but you're gonna have another meeting with the district to see if that is the best practice, just because it's been past practice. Is
Well,
that what
yeah.
I'm understanding?
Well, yeah, the way that works, Tony, correct me if I'm wrong, but Michael, is, the towns will bill for certain services for the district. It's just a whole host of things. I don't know them off the top of my head.
Yeah,
So basically the way it looks is we allocate, our assessment to the school, but then we're billing back some of that for services. Is that what we should be doing? Well, first off, Bridgewater was doing it, was Rainham doing it, which, we found out today we are. But now it goes into another discussion, looking at it and seeing, should we keep doing it? Should we change the way we do it? Should we stop doing it? Don't know tonight, but at least we can go back and say, all right, both towns are doing it. Let's take a look at it for the next fiscal year to see if we make some adjustments, if it makes sense.
okay. Thank you for clarifying
To-
that.
to-
Yep,
Tony,
that's-
Michael, did
that-
I?
Well, you're dead on from my perspective.
Okay.
Okay, understanding where it originated kind of helps me understand.
Yep,
A little
yeah.
bit better. Okay.
Yep.
Thank you. Any other public comment tonight? Anybody else wish to speak during public comment?
Dennis, it's Mike Dolan.
Oh, hi, Mike. Yep.
How's everybody doing? I just wanted to thank Tony and Michael and Lori for all their work with the district this year. I said this at our last school committee meeting, that this is the first year in 6 years we have agreed upon a budget well before anybody votes on it. So I just want to give kudos to everybody on both sides of the table, the district as well as the towns. So thank you.
So if I could, I'd only point out that Mike Dolan was the chair of the school committee this year, and it just happens to be the first year that we've been able to do this.
I gotta get my boots on.
So do I.
And Julie wasn't on the budget subcommittee, so there you go.
Touche.
It's nice when they're easy, and it certainly is hell when it's not.
Mhm.
Okay, any other comments regarding any other public comment tonight? I don't see anybody. Okay, I'll move on to a motion. I'll entertain a motion to adjourn the meeting.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Sean, seconded by Matt. Any discussion? Sean?
No discussion on adjournment.
Okay. Sean?
Yes.
Matt?
Yes.
Dennis, yes. We are adjourned at 7:27 PM. I will see you all Monday night.
Thanks,
Thank you.
everyone.
Yeah,
Good night.
thank you.
Thank you.
Good job.